So George Frempong is, what is your exact, VP of Sales?
So I'm SVP of Sales.
Senior Vice President of Sales. Started the Herjavec group. Robert, Sean was the tech guy.
Yeah.
And we are now at, we were discussing it last night, 140, 149?
Let's say 150.
150 million in sales,
Yeah.
right? And you have a goal to get to like $1 billion and take over the world and, right? I think isn't that something world domination came into the conversation last night a little
Well,
bit?
you got to set your goals high, right?
Right, I'm with you. So, how many of you saw Robert or were at one of the producers club meetings and saw Robert? So we spent a day up at the office at the Herjavec group, and we got to hang out with George and the team, and it was a phenomenal day. And George, as soon as George, I think you were the first one to speak that morning, right? And I just started asking him questions, and so he's looking at me going, "Who's this lady who's asking me all these questions? She must run the place around or this little group or something like that." But what really impressed me a lot about you, and the reason I wanted to bring you here today is that Robert is a phenomenal entrepreneur, but if you don't have a George, if you don't have a guy like this, you can't get to 150 million in sales. You just can't. And he's out there day to day, fighting the battle, growing the sales team, all those things. And he's a super badass, smart dude. I just want to tell you. He didn't pay me to say that. I feel that way. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and what you guys have done and the team and Robert. And so I wanted to bring you here to these guys because you started out you were an inside sales guy, and we kind of grew from there.
In my previous life, yes.
Yeah. So why don't we start by why don't you tell everyone how you got involved with Robert, just so they can understand.
Wow. Okay.
That dynamic.
I've known Robert for over 22 years, longer than probably I've wanted to know an individual, probably, right? So.
You know him longer than your wife?
Yeah. Actually,
wow.
Yeah.
It's a longer relationship.
Actually, I do. So I've known him for a very long time. So I used to work with him in his first company. He sold his first business in '99. At the tail end, I was the top salesperson in the organization. He went off to work for a company in the U.S. called Ramp Networks, which most of you guys would probably know. Sold that business, then retired because his kids were grown and they're in school, so he had to find a next job, and he contacted me in 2002, let's say, late end 2002. And at that time, I was at Deloitte & Touche. I was running their security practice for them, and Robert gave me an opportunity that I couldn't refuse.
Okay.
So we started the Herjavec group in 2003.
And so it was you,
It was
Robert,
me,
and Sean?
Yeah, me, Robert, Sean, and we had a receptionist.
Did you have an office? Did you guys have an office, or were you virtual?
We had a shared office, probably no bigger than the stage that we're sitting on right now.
Okay.
All of us cramped up into that space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was exciting.
All right.
I don't miss it, but it was exciting.
Right, okay. Always good to look back. Okay, so your goal for your first year, you start this company, Robert's, he's a growth guy, right? What's the goal? What happens?
He's a growth guy. We had egos, obviously. We had a chip on our shoulder because we had done it in the past. We sold the first business for lots of money, but at the tail end, our revenues were roughly around $50 million. So for us to get back in the business, we said this should be a no-brainer. We should be able to come back into the marketplace and dominate. Mm-hmm. And so our first year projectives were about $5 million.
Okay, first year in, you're going, with
first
all
year,
our connections, all our experience, we should be able to do $5 million. Okay.
Easy.
What'd you do?
We did $400K.
400,000, okay.
So you can imagine that went over well, with a guy like Robert.
How did Robert take the news?
Didn't take it.
Yeah.
It was very difficult for him because, not that we have an ego, but I think we see ourselves as better than that.
Mm-hmm.
That we can come into a marketplace and, have an objective and be able to deliver on that objective. Mm-hmm. And so for us, it was a huge failure, but, we didn't account for a lot of things taking place. One being, we were out of the market for a while.
Yeah, so you had sold the company.
So they were dealing with other people.
Yeah.
And the other people weren't bad, they were good. No one's going to leave bad for possibly better. Right? You know what I mean? So
Did you guys just hear that distinction? Nobody's going to leave good for possibly better. Right.
all right? And so it was hard for us at the beginning, and I had to tell them, it's going to take time.
Right.
We're going to have to come up with a different game plan in terms of how to grow the revenues within the organization.
Okay.
And we did that. In the first year, we came out and we went back selling what we were used to selling.
Right.
And that didn't work. And so we had to find another technology that we can go back into the people who did like us and also become the incumbent. And once we were the incumbent, we can go back in and sell the stuff that
Other
we were
stuff.
really good at.
Right, right.
And so that was the
Okay.
game plan.
So what were you selling when you initially started? What were you selling?
Checkpoint firewalls.
So just sell the firewall, go in, install
That's
it.
it. We were a
That's it.
pure reseller.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't make we didn't make anything. We didn't have a service at the time. We didn't have a managed services practice.
Okay.
So it was just a resell game.
Okay. And your job obviously was sales,
Mm-hmm.
right? What was Robert doing as well?
Arbor was selling,
So two of you on the phone,
Yep.
kissing babies, shaking hands.
going to meetings,
Okay.
doing a lot of lunches.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just talking to people you know.
correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so then what did you have to, you said you changed the product offering. So what?
Yeah,
what-
we picked up a technology. So at the time, this was probably 2004. We got into a space anti-spam. So at that time, anti-spam became big.
Okay.
And so we picked up a company out of the U.S. called Cipher Trust that got sold multiple different times. And we brought them into Canada, and that was our leading technology that we went back to customers with.
Okay.
And we did really well with that. So we went from 400K, and in the second year, we did 4.1 million.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And so just the three of you doing that, or were you hiring people, and what was your hiring?
Yeah, I think we added maybe an additional one or two more salespeople at that time.
Okay,
Yeah, very small. I mean, the company was less than 10 people at the time,
okay,
right?
all right. And what was the first sales, so who did you hire? Did you hire a telemarketer? Did you hire an inside salesperson?
Salesperson.
Just outside, go out
We
and...
hired another outside salesperson because for us to grow our revenues, we felt that the more salespeople we had on the street, the better it would increase our odds, obviously.
And just for this crowd, so we can understand,
Yeah.
so you have, okay, so you're a three-person company,
Yeah.
one tech, two sales guys, a secretary, all right? So 50% of the company is in sales.
Right.
Okay, which I know you guys feel that everybody's in sales,
Correct.
right? Because we were talking about that last night. So as you're adding on these salespeople, who was in charge of keeping the techs up, that side? Was there any other fight about the tech side going, guys, you need to slow sales down because we can't keep up, we can't find good techs,
So
or you just didn't care?
we cared, but in order for us to grow,
Okay,
we felt that we had to sell.
Right.
You know what I mean? We would sell it first
Okay.
and then figure out on the tech side in terms of how we would implement it.
Right.
And things along the line. Because if you don't sell a deal, there's nothing to install,
right.
right?
No, I'm with you.
Right.
And so, okay, so we were talking last night a little bit,
Yeah.
and one of the things that you said is you go and you buy smaller MSPs or smaller companies. It's one of your growth strategies.
We have.
You have. It's
Yeah.
one of them, like one of the things that you do. So, and we were talking last night about, he was asking about not just this people in the room, but just the industry as a whole. And we were saying that a lot of the people in the room, you guys are the technicians. At least that's where you started. And we were joking because he said, well, in my experience, anyone who's a technical CEO never succeeds. And we were like joking, oh, well, don't say that to them tomorrow. You can't crash their hopes. We got to actually
I hope there's no technical CEOs here.
are there any technical CEOs in the room? All right, yeah. So I'm just.
Thanks, Robin.
No. And I said I was going to tell him that. He's like, well, and I'm like, but it was an honest answer, right? And that's not to say if you're technical, you can't make the switch. You said it because from your experience.
Just from my experience, yeah.
From experience,
Yeah.
and it doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't make them stupid people. It doesn't make them none of those things. We're not saying any of those things. What's the difference? Is that
Well, I think it's, for us, it's sales first.
Okay.
And the organizations we acquired in the 12 years we've been in business, we probably acquired 6 or 7 businesses.
Okay.
Small businesses, some a little bit bigger, but the common theme that I can take from that is that they don't grow as fast. Their targets are very slimmed down, if you want to call it. We had very aggressive goals, as you can imagine. Our first year, 5 million,
Yeah.
and we ended up doing 700. It's not good, but
Yeah.
we figured it out later on. So they're just not as aggressive
Okay.
in terms of, their growth. And the organizations that we we acquired in the past, they've actually started to decline in terms of sales.
So that basically a technical CEO is going to get them to so far. And
Yeah.
then after that, it takes a sales-driven CEO to really grow the company.
Not even that. I mean, I think if you want to grow your organization, you have to find somebody who is responsible for sales for your company. There's a role in your organization. The CEO should play the CEO role.
Right.
And bring in a salesperson whose job is to sell. I think, the issue is that when you have an organization that, when the CEO wants to do every little job within the organization,
Yeah.
I think that's where you get into some challenges.
Right.
Right? So if you want to grow your business, my recommendation is hire a sales dedicated person who's responsible for the number and growing the organization and have him play that role.
Right. Just delegate that. Just
For sure,
do that,
100%.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, because what we were also, if you think, how many of you in here at some point have a goal or a vision that you want to sell the company? Like that's your end game, like you want to sell it, right? So another thing that was interesting is when you think about, if that is your end game, if you're the CEO and the end game is I want to sell this company, then you have to think to yourself, what's going to make my company very attractive for somebody to want to come buy it? And we were having the discussion, you
Yeah.
said a lot of the guys think that, well, they got to get their operations really tight and they've got to get the technology tight. And when they look at buying, when bigger companies look to buy you, what are they buying?
They're buying your customer list.
That's it.
Plain and simple.
So so think about this. If your end game really truly is to sell, the best thing you can be doing right now is getting really big, fat, juicy client accounts, because that's what's going to make you attractive. Because someone's going to say, well, it's easier just to buy them from, take the company and then go
Yeah,
get
because
them.
they're not going to use your operations. They're not going to use they will bring on your technical folks, obviously.
Right.
But it's typically for your client list
Okay.
in terms of how they can get in and they can sell their solution
Okay.
within their client base.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about is how to get into larger accounts. Now,
Yeah.
when you were small, 3 people, 4 people, were you selling to big accounts? Were you going high end? Or
We
were you-
always looked at ourselves as a small organization that kind of thinks and acts big.
Right.
So our target was always to go after the biggest person within the organization. So CIO typically for what we do was our target.
Okay.
And then we would target the CIO, get the blessing from the CIO to a certain degree in terms of the people underneath him.
Right.
And then go from that standpoint.
So you were calling on, what size companies were you calling on? Small?
Yeah, so our target
SMB?
list, so.
When you started,
When
like-
we started,
Yeah.
we always said 1,000 users and above.
That was it.
Yeah, so we carved out our niche, right? Is that what you say, or niche?
No, we say it niche.
Niche.
Yeah, you just
We
say
carved out our niche.
Don't even start, Mark. See Mark standing up back there? He's grinning. That's why, yeah.
Yeah, and so we, from day one, we always wanted to target the larger organizations.
So right from the
our
get-go.
sweet spot is 1,000 users and above.
Did it ever come up that, hey, you guys are only 3 people, you got 1 tech?
Didn't care.
They didn't care.
They.
So what do you guys think of that?
They cared, but I think, in terms of what we were doing at the very beginning, it wasn't really relevant. You got to keep in mind we were a reseller. So we're reselling technologies. It's not like we're creating something that new. So
Okay.
they can buy it from me, they can buy it from another organization.
Okay.
I'm not creating that sale. My job is to find that opportunity and sell it to the client. So it wasn't really relevant. When we became of size, obviously it mattered because, can you deliver
Okay.
from that standpoint? So it's a different game, right?
So, but you clearly sold some, even though you were we had 1 tech guy, we got Robert, there's me, there's a secretary. You were selling something. What was your average price point back then? Like, what was the...
In terms of what, product or?
Yeah, so you go in and the year you did 400,000 or even 4 million the next year, what
Yeah.
was the average contract size you were going to sell?
I would say 250,000.
So you're just going in,
Yeah.
250,000,
Yeah.
the deal's closing.
Yep.
How many people did you have to talk to before you got that sale?
Well, spam was hot at that time, right? So if we're
Okay.
talking about 2004, spam was hot.
So you
were
had
trying-
a no need,
Yeah.
there was a big need, you had a solution, and you chose spam, not because you knew security was your wheelhouse, but you chose
Right.
that because that was the easiest entry into that.
to get into the account, and so
Okay.
that we can become the incumbent. And then once we became the incumbent, we can go back in and sell the stuff that we were really good at, was firewalls.
Okay,
Right.
is this making sense, guys? It's kind of a smart strategy if you think about it. Instead of just trying to beat people over the head with, here's what we do, maybe there's something else you could get into sell. All right, so selling to bigger accounts, that's one of the things I want to, how many of you would like to get into big accounts, right? You'd love to get in there. shout out, tell me, what are some of the things that you struggle with getting into big accounts?
That we're small.
That you're small?
Yeah, we're a 4-person company, and we want not 1,000, but we're looking for 250, 500 people companies, and now we're 4 people, are you gonna be able to handle us?
Well,
Okay.
how would they know that you're a small organization?
Flat out ask.
Yeah, they ask.
How big is your company?
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me?
They can hear you, they can't hear her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Sage, by the way, she's trouble.
Sage?
Yeah, Sage All, but we just call her Sage-alicious. So just,
I'm not going to call her that.
I appreciate that. I do. Thank you.
She's trouble. Okay, I'm just saying,
Well,
if
pleasure
she gets in
meeting
the
you.
elevator with you,
Okay.
get off on the next floor. I'm just saying, all right?
That's a lot of pressure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
What
it's
was
a
your
pleasure
question?
meeting you. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know why they were all screaming. I said, oh no, the company's flat out asked. They've asked me, how large is your company? How many people do you have? And I don't like to skirt around the answer, so I'll say, we're 4 people. We have consultants and tech, but I'm even talking about 60, 70, 80 people companies that are like, and we only have large companies. We don't take any of the smaller companies right now. That's our niche. I do say niche. But that they flat out ask, and they say, well, are you going to be able to handle us? Are you going to?
What are you selling to these people?
MSP.
Okay.
Managed services, yeah.
And so do you have any large customers that you can reference?
We do. We
Okay,
do.
so if you can support larger customers, then it shouldn't be really a challenge in terms of supporting the.
I agree, and and I've said I have several clients, et cetera, and they say, well, you're going to take on one more of us. Are you going to go out and hire? Now they want to know my hiring plan. I mean, is that really your business?
In terms of the hiring? Yeah, well, you have to show growth. I think, if you want to play in the big space, you have to show a level of growth for sure. You have to present your organization as a large organization that's willing to grow as well, too. That would be my 2 cents.
I agree. I understand. How would you say that to a client? I feel like if you're a client, a potential client, you're saying, well, when are you going to hire? How are you going to hire? You're sort of a little bit in my space.
It's tough. It's tough. I think,
If she was one of your sales reps,
yeah.
let's do it. Let's play from that role.
Yeah.
How would you? I know you're being nice, so what would make?
Yeah, Robert wasn't so nice when he
Yeah.
was with me on
Yeah,
stage.
well.
So
I'm not saying. Well, it's not a matter of being nice. Let's just be straight. I mean,
I think it all starts with the presentation at the beginning. You know what I mean? It starts with when you walk in the door, how does that customer see you? Do they see you as a small player, or do they see you as somebody that has the opportunity to grow or to gain their interest? So it all starts from the day you walk in the door, because if you're a small player, people are going to see you as a small player, would be my 2 cents.
So everything from the way you dress to the way you conduct yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important. I mean, for my sales staff, I tell everybody you got to wear a suit and tie every day, Monday to Friday. It's no exception. And, it's because when you're in front of clients, you want to portray that level of expertise, right? And so, but I'll give you a quick story in terms of the managed services. So we sold our very first managed services to a very large company. Not going to say the name, and we're competing against some very large players. And I kid you not, we did a good selling job, and they wanted to come and see our SOC. And at the time, we didn't have a SOC. So we got our technical folks to create a little room with a couple of monitor screens.
Is that the one we saw when we were there?
No, that's the new stuff, right? That's the real stuff right now. But at the time, we didn't have a SOC. So we went to Best Buy or one of those places, bought a couple of computer screens, had 2 tech people sitting into the room and said, this is our SOC. And we sold this client because we did such a good selling job in terms of our capabilities and making sure that we can support this client. We sold these guys a $50,000 per month managed services contract without having a real SOC.
Okay.
wow. Thank you.
Right.
So
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's all about being credible. I mean, it's a client that, at the end of the day, they've seen the value that we can add. We had a little bit of history with them in the past, and they're still a client today,
Okay.
by the way.
Yeah. So
You know,
how much do you
12
think
years.
is it the mindset of somebody who goes in that they think they're small, so they kind of the way?
You have to believe that you're big. Absolutely, it's a mindset. If you go in and you say, my back is against the wall, these guys are going to think that we're a small player, then you're dead from the outset. I think you got to act like you're a big player,
Yeah,
and you have
it's
to
a lot
act
of
as a business. You got to act that if this business is important enough for you, that you'll do everything in order to grow your business with this customer, right? And so,
So do you think a lot of it is just your confidence when you go in?
100%.
More than just all the facts and credibility and...
We're all in sales. I think, it's hard for you to sell something that you really don't believe in. So if you don't believe that you're a big organization and that you can deliver on the service, it's going to be very hard for you to, articulate that in front of a CIO or CEO of an organization that looks at you and say you're a small player. You have to believe in what you're selling. That's the key.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you prospecting to get into big accounts today? I mean, and you've been in this, and is there a couple tricks, tips, secrets to how do you get into these big accounts?
1,000 users and above is the starting point for
Okay,
us,
the minimum,
right?
right.
So the bigger the better, obviously. So,
So you know who they are then, right?
We do. We have a
Okay.
list, obviously. And if you have those parameters and you say it's 1,000 users above, then people don't typically go below that. And so you're targeting the large organizations. You get that familiarity in terms of how to deal with those large organizations. So I was telling you last night that we've had a challenge in terms of growing, but I think I've got a solution to fix that problem, because when you get to that level of growth and you have large clients, salespeople get lazy. They don't want to leave those large clients and find other large clients. And so therefore, the amount that you can grow is within that account base. And so I've hired inside salespeople recently, and it's not something that we've done for the last 11 years. And so this is the first year, and we're seeing more growth. So for me, our plan is to get to roughly about $250 million in the next 2 to 3 years. And the way I'm going to get to that is by leveraging the inside salespeople who love to pound the phone, who love to make calls. And as indicated before, everyone has a role within the organization. The job of an inside salesperson is to find and identify an opportunity and then pass it on to a salesperson or a manager or a tech team and have them help them in terms of closing that opportunity.
Okay.
When we were small as an organization, I think something that you guys could all relate to is we always used to get together every day and strategize on opportunities. So every deal was a big deal for us, because when we were smaller, we didn't have a lot of deals.
Yeah.
And so we always used to strategize. We used to get into the room and figure out how would we close this opportunity together as a group.
Okay.
It'd be the sales, the tech people, all getting together in ensuring that we can close the opportunity.
Got it. Okay. What questions do you guys have? I don't want to monopolize the time up here. So as far as selling to larger accounts, growing a sales team, those are the areas. Or if you go to a mic.
What are like the qualities of a salesperson? I think a lot of us struggle to hire salespeople, and we've really gotten hurt by salespeople we've hired.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, when you're going through an interview process with people, it's one of the hardest things, But I typically can tell in the 10 to 15 minutes that I speak with an individual, whether they're going to be successful or not. I really look for greedy salespeople. I do. And, we laugh about it, but, I want a person who wants to come on board, who has goals, personal goals, and they're greedy. Because I know that person is going to be successful in my business because he's going to sell.
Greedy for money?
Greedy for money. One of the questions I ask in an interview process, and I know they tell you you're not supposed to ask this, is what motivates you in terms of sales? And if that answer is not anything related to money, I'm not really that excited about that individual.
Okay. Yeah, see, I think you've interviewed so many people. How many salespeople do you have working for you?
We have under 40.
40. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and how many total people in the company?
250.
Okay. So can you, I think that was one of the things that the people came up to the Herjavec group when you said that. I think it shocked a lot of people that you have a lot of salespeople as a percentage of the overall company.
Right.
So I want to make that point. But I think also you've interviewed a lot of people now, and you know what to look for almost instinctively, but a lot of us haven't hired 40 salespeople. So we haven't had that practice. So what else do you look for just to continue on her? Anything else?
First appearance. When somebody comes in to meet me, I'm looking at first appearance. Are they wearing a shirt and tie? If they're not wearing a shirt and tie,
No go?
it's a no-go for
Okay.
me. Absolutely. You can be the smartest guy in the room. If you're not wearing a shirt and tie and you don't feel it's appropriate enough for you to dress up for an interview session, I'm not really that interested.
Okay. Anything else?
You know what? I don't hire to a certain degree, people who are in love with technology, let's say, as an example, my preference is to hire sales individuals, people who can sell, because I have the technology experts in-house that can help them close the deal.
Right.
I want salespeople.
I mean, that's what you said last night, which was, he's like, I don't care, not that you don't care about the technology, he's like, I care about making a sale. I'm
Exactly.
a sales guy, right?
I'm a
Yeah.
salesperson.
Yeah.
Do you
know,
look for a particular vertical that they've come from, like a particular job line or something, or experience, years of experience?
in our space, typically in our space, so in IT, I want somebody who has the background, at least, you know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be for a long period of time, just somebody in our space. So maybe one of your competitors as an example, right? A larger competitor or a smaller competitor, somebody you can look at in terms of stealing business, right?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the early days when you were 3, and Robert, when he was here a couple months ago, said the same thing, that he had a deal or he walked in somewhere and they said, can you do this? And he's like, no, I can't do it. But yes, he told the client he could do it to sell it. So you have to be confident when you sell something. So how are you confident when you don't really have the back end to support it? And then are you walking in there with scripts and things like that, or is it rehearsed?
There's no scripts. Sales, you can't script a sale because, you know.
We had this conversation, I told you. We had this conversation. George, I asked him, this man has never read a book, all right? You are an anomaly, my friend.
I am.
Okay, so let's be clear. There aren't many Georges walking around, okay?
That wasn't a knock on her. That wasn't a knock on her business, by the way. You know, I mean, I think what she's done is fantastic. Absolutely great.
It is, and I agree. And the reason I ask that question is because what you're saying is hard for me to do. It's hard for me not to walk in there and go off script and feel confident. Once it derails off my script, I can feel it. You know, I get nervous.
Yeah, I hear you. You
But
know,
you have a process. I mean, do you
Sure.
let all your 40 salespeople just whatever the hell they want to say? They
not
say?
today, but when we
Okay,
first started,
okay,
you know what I
okay.
mean? But,
All right, well,
you know,
all right,
when we first started, you got to keep in mind the best lessons in life are the ones that, you know, that hit you hard. So we've lost a lot, don't get me wrong, right? So I've learned by losing, right? And so from those mistakes, I've been able to correct those mistakes for the next time, right? So you got to lose a lot to actually, you know, be really, really good.
well, what I think when we actually drilled on this a little bit more on the phone, you were saying you have, from the standpoint of a script, in that you have to listen to the client and you have to be willing to be flexible in a sales. If you see an opportunity here, go off script. I mean, I'm not saying stay on this rail no matter what, but
A good script gets you in the door.
well, it gets you in the door and a
100%.
process for closing a sale.
Yep.
You know, total respect, but I bet you if I could script your people and give them a process, I can make them better.
She probably could.
I absolutely, I am 1,000%.
Sorry?
No, I am 1,000%.
I agree.
No.
I agree. You know, and she's absolutely right. I think, you know, the state that we are right now as an organization, you're right. It helps us in terms of, you know, coming up with a better script because you're hiring more people. And I don't have the time of day to go to every individual and spend that time with them to go through that. So you're right. A process.
It's about having a playbook. We're
Yeah,
talking about having a
100%.
sales playbook. Right?
100%. It
But,
works.
but yeah, this guy, he's total anomaly. I mean, like, you know, if you could find him and hire him, your problems are solved.
You know,
right?
my answer to sales, you know, to be honest with you, is common sense.
Right.
Think about it. Like, I mean,
yeah.
a lot of the stuff that we do in terms of sales comes down to common sense. You know, ask the questions. Would you do it? Put yourself in a customer situation and ask yourself, I'm asking them to do something. Would I personally do this on my own? It's common sense. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. And so you were asking about confidence. Now let's go back to the question, though. Is confidence, like in his mind, he's sitting there going, I know I don't have the staff, the technical expertise. I don't have these things. How do I have that confidence to go in and sell that when I know I don't, right today, don't have that to deliver?
It's going to sound weird, but, you know, when we first started the organization, it was blind faith. Honestly, we believe that we can actually deliver.
Okay.
You know, whether we are small or not, we actually believe we can
We'll
do it.
figure it out.
And we did.
Yeah.
And we did. You know, I mean, we sold it, and we're going down this line, and everybody followed suit.
Right.
And we
So
had
is
to deliver.
it safe, is it fair to say you sell it on the premise that I'll figure it out, and that and that if we sell it, that will pull operations and technical expert. That'll pull those guys up.
Yeah.
Versus waiting until we have it all and then go sell it. Is that fair to say?
That was our motto when we first started.
Okay.
And I know it was painful for the technical folks because it always did, sometimes it didn't work, but, it got us to the level where we are today.
Okay.
By having that blind faith and understanding this is where we need to go. Everyone in the organization has to pull through with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that help? Probably not. I mean, like,
It does, I'm a technician at heart, so.
Yeah, right.
Around that is where he comes from.
So just so you all hear, he's a technician at heart, and so it's very hard. He knows what has to be done. So you've got, and he knows the pain of what you will go sell.
Yeah, it's tough. When you have that mentality where, you're technically focused and, you want to make sure that you do a great job for the customer. Sometimes it's hard to sell something that you don't believe that you can deliver on. And I think that's the scenario that he's going through right now.
What would you recommend for him to do? Maybe hire a salesperson to
Hire a sales guy that'll lie on your behalf.
Yeah, right. Hire a sales guy that's gonna, yeah. All right. No, but like I said, at least you recognize it. And it's better to not just sweep it on the rug and say, well, okay, well, how do we figure this out? But it sounds to me like you sold it. And by the way, in this community, if you ever get a huge opportunity, it's not like you guys. You could.
Yeah.
These guys will call each other and support each other. You can find guys. Every one of you in this community, in our community, can find the help. Holy shit! I just closed a $50,000 a month MRR deal. Who has this expertise? Who can I? You can figure it out. The hard part, I think, is getting that deal.
You got to close it. If you can close it first, and then you'll figure out the back end in terms of how you're going to make it work.
How to make it work.
Like I said to you, we closed our very first big managed services, and we didn't have a SOC,
Okay.
but we built a SOC after, right?
Okay.
And so one of the organizations that we acquired during our 12 years, funny enough, so this company built a managed services practice, and they built a beautiful SOC
Right.
before they had a customer. And guess what? They went out of business. Right? And so you got to sell it first before you can actually build it, would be my recommendation.
Right. All right.
Thanks. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about how you're getting into these bigger accounts. You mentioned you have telemarketers, but is that the only method that you're doing? Are you doing lumpy mails? Are you doing the FedEx
He doesn't know any of that
packages?
stuff.
Yeah, so we don't do any mailers. No, in our business, the way I look at it in terms of growing, it's hand-to-hand combat. Pick up the phone, make a call, get involved, and get into an account. And so we've done a great job in terms of making sure our salespeople are busy in terms of the meetings that they're booking with these accounts, right? And so when you're trying to sell to a large organization, you got to figure out also the politics within those companies. So you want to do well, you got to figure out their politics in big companies. As you know, there's tons of politics. Everyone has an agenda in terms of what they want to get out of it, and your job is to figure out what that agenda is, right?
Okay. So give us some examples. So you're used to working in that environment.
Yeah.
So
So
give-
typically we
so-
go, when we book a meeting with a very large organization, it starts with the CIO.
So how are you getting that meeting? How are you getting that meeting? I think that's where a lot of organizations struggle.
Right.
Is if we could get into that meeting, that's half the battle right there. is
We've all
getting
sold
that.
to large customers before, or I'm hoping that you have a large customer within your account base. Leverage that. That's a leverage point. You've done well with them. Use them as a reference to get into the next meeting. Whatever you did well to get that meeting or the first account, leverage that same feeling, that relationship, and go into the next account. It's the same thing.
He's got a big team of salespeople. They're just pounding the phones.
They're really hitting the phones.
Yeah.
You may not have
It is a numbers game, 100% numbers game.
See, George says you don't know the direct response stuff I do. We were talking last night about
Yeah.
why my company's so
Yeah.
small team numbers, because I don't have 40 people pound the phone, and how I grew. See, he doesn't know all that stuff. We'll help him. He doesn't know yet. Be easy on him, all right? But yeah, it's just salespeople. If you get enough
It's a numbers
if you
game.
get enough
Yeah.
aggressive outbound reach, you're going to hit something. It's a matter of just, like you say, the need is out there. It's a matter of just calling and getting around until that need is there. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I was saying to Robin last night. So what I love about our industry is, the stuff that we're selling, people know they need to buy it. So our job as salespeople is pick up the phone and make a call and make sure that they buy from you. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, simple, guys. What the hell are you doing here, right? You know? Right, yeah.
So my question is, I'm in the midst of building my sales force right now. So
Okay.
I have myself, the owner. I'm trying to sell and really more move into the CEO role. I have a great sales engineer who's doing an excellent job. The marketing is really cooking. We feel like we've got a great outside sales strategy going on. What we don't have going on, according to Robin, is we have hundreds, actually literally thousands of clients, and we don't really have a method for taking those clients and moving them to spend more money with us. And so my question is, can you sort of explain the roles of an account manager and an inside salesperson, and can you sort of clearly define what it is those people do versus the outside sales folks who are following up on the marketing leads and who are going out and closing brand new people,
Net new.
and how to do that effectively?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a lot of points in there that hopefully I can touch on. So one would be, how do you compensate your salespeople right now?
We compensate them where the first month of the agreement, 100% of that goes to them. And then any one-time type of sale, like an equipment or a project, 20% of the gross profit goes to them.
And so do you pay them on recurring fee as well too?
They have a base salary.
Yeah.
And then it's the commission that they earn based on that scale.
But
I'm
no
assuming,
recurring.
no recurring. So I'm assuming they're selling the managed services, right?
That's
So
correct.
if they
They're
sell
selling- they're
3-year
selling
managed
both.
services, so if they sell 3-year managed services, are you compensating them on the 3 years?
No, they just, there's no further compensation past the first month.
Yep.
And then.
They
and this
close
is,
it and chuck it over their shoulder and say,
That's right.
That's it?
Yeah.
And then you have the 100 clients,
That-
and they're not growing.
Yeah, and some of our technicians, who we also give sales training to, those technicians go out and they're trained on how to upsell loosely.
Are they?
But
Okay.
I think that we have so many clients, because we do, we have so many clients that if we had someone who could
mining those opportunities.
exactly
Yeah.
do something, but that something is the question that I have, is I'm just not really sure exactly what they should do.
Split your sales staff. Have your farmers and create a new sales organization that has hunters. You know, people that actively go out and get net new business, because there are people, you know, unfortunately in our sales that want to just farm, and there's ones that want to hunt. And I think that, you know, if you create the separation in terms of, you know, have your farmers and then compensate them, because salespeople work really well when they understand the compensation and how they get paid, and they work towards making sure that that's how they're going to get paid. Is so, you know, if you have the farmers and compensate them based on farming or uplifting the existing contracts, you'll see that possibly that some of those accounts will grow.
So so you have some people on your team who,
Yeah.
they don't hunt, they're just farmers, is that right?
They all think they're farmers.
Okay,
And
okay.
so, yeah, and so for me, I kind of change up the compensation in terms of, you know, how they behave, you know what I mean? Because salespeople behave based on what their comp is.
Okay.
Yeah, so, you know, you pay them a little bit less in terms of existing business and pay them more on that new business. So you want to grow your organization, pay salespeople a lot of money just for going out and getting that new business.
Yeah, I think, so what you were saying is you had, who were supposed to be hunters, but you were allowing them to keep an account. So
Yeah.
they were basically just sitting on these accounts and saying, I'm making my number, leave me alone,
We were
right?
plateauing, right. So, I mean, we got to $120 million and we weren't growing. And the reason why we weren't growing, because the sales staff all thought that they were enterprise sales reps and, you know, that they can farm these accounts and they
And they're
can
hitting
get
their
to,
number.
yeah, they're hitting their number. And so, you know, they come to me.
Could you be a little bit more defined when you say farming? I understand the hunting part, but my question is, what is involved in the day of a farmer?
They have a farmer is they're maintaining the relationship in the account. So if an opportunity comes up, sure, they'll take it down, but they're not actively typically going out there and finding net new projects. So they're protecting the business that they have today. That's my definition of a farmer.
And is that a different position from an account manager?
Yes.
What does the account manager do?
I think
What does the farmer do?
account managers are typically, they're going out and they're looking for accounts, brand new accounts.
So your term for account manager is the hunter outside sales guy.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. I think, you know, when John talks next, I think he'll talk about inside sales. But I can tell you, typically an inside salesperson, that farmer is going to get a higher salary, but there still should be some targets of how to expand within account. But you got to teach them what that account, we were talking about that, like account mapping.
Yeah.
So you say, here's the accounts we have, here's what, you know, why aren't you talking to them about these 5 products? Or why aren't you talking about these 2 services or whatever? Yeah.
What's the gentleman's name? Mike. Yeah, so another option is if you have salespeople that you've had for a long time, what you could do also is you can bring inside salespeople and attach that inside salesperson to an outside salesperson. That inside person could be the hunter within within the account per se, and have the salesperson farm. There's different models, depending on what you're looking for.
And I think John's going to touch on that in his next session. Mr.
So
Mark.
I'm the tech-based CEO, one and only sales guy, and you're saying I need salespeople instead. So which one should I hire first? A telemarketer, an inside sales, or an outside sales?
Outside sales.
Outside.
Outside sales. Because if you get an opportunity to close, you need somebody who has at least the knowledge in terms of taking the sales from step A to Z, if you want to call it, right? So, or a telemarketer, or you can get it both. You know what I mean? Someone who can come in and pound the phone, depending on, what you're looking for.
I'll pound the phones if that means the outside salesperson's doing that instead.
If you want to grow, you got to pound the phones.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't want you doing the phone. You can hire someone for $15 an hour to do that.
If I can't onboard 2 new people at the same time,
So given
it's
it,
a matter of priority. So if I, at the moment I'm
I'll
pounding
actually challenge you there. I think now maybe you disagree. I actually think it's easier to onboard 2 or 3 salespeople because you can do the training in a group. Boom, boom, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Now, if there's another reason why you can't onboard
No,
them,
I was just, because in my head that's your role and that's a totally different role, and I didn't see that as a group training.
but given a choice, okay, so do you have technical folks?
Yes,
Okay, so given a choice, get somebody who can pound the phone.
right.
That'd be your number one objective. And
And
then
then
that
you
person
close.
can generate those leads or opportunities over to your technical folks who can help you close those.
Yeah, I don't do any tech work at all. I'm purely doing sales at the moment. So,
You are, okay.
yeah,
Or they can pass them on to you and you can go create the sale.
right.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.